Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. This is the ISO GOAT here, back again for another quick video. Let me start this by saying I'm not a financial advisor, nor is this financial advice whatsoever. Do not invest in anything solely based on my opinion or anything that I say in this video until you've done your own due diligence and your own research first. Never throw in more money than you're willing to lose, and also make sure you have a firm understanding of crypto before throwing in any kind of money. We are back again. We have my brother Smqke, and he's got quite a bit of information he wants to drop for you guys today. This man is the man, the myth, the legend. This man has been, flooding the Twitter streets. It's been kind of dry lately. If nobody else has noticed, I definitely have. So from here on out, man, you got the floor. Take it away.
Bet. Thanks, fellas. I'm happy to be back. Today, basically, we're introducing a part 2 to our first documentation roundtable video, and this one basically is focusing on the transaction management platform. And basically, we got a couple documents here that illustrate to us what we think the transaction manager is going to be when it finally just goes live within the ISO migration. So, first things first, Swift is moving away from simply exchanging messages between banks and series. Instead, they're planning to introduce processing capabilities on a central platform that will orchestrate payments based on a central golden copy of all transaction data. Banks, therefore, will exchange transaction data with the central platform instead of sending it to the next party in the payments chain for a cross-border payment. This will make cross-border payments faster and more efficient. So basically it's saying that Swift is no longer just sending messages from bank to bank. It's now moving on to orchestrating transactions and sending payments between the banks. And this new platform will be known as the transaction management platform. This platform is said to deliver instant frictionless payments thanks to the new transaction management capabilities. It was endorsed in September 2020 and launched in November 2022. The new platform will have a centralized data model using ISO 20022. And down here it discusses the legacy messages and the issues, the possible errors that could happen while using legacy MT messages. And down here it says, with Swift's transaction management platform, all these issues are solved relating to data structure and limited space thanks to ISO. Under this innovative model, a golden copy of the payment message is stored in Swift's new platform for each bank to access when they need to. This resolves any problems with truncation. That's basically the errors and the incorrect transactions that can possibly occur with MT messages during in the FIN format. So down here it says, discusses the backwards compatibility capabilities of the transaction management platform, and it also goes on to say, meanwhile, more advanced banks can adopt ISO more quickly and communicate with the platform via APIs. That's a new capability of the platform that was originally not there. Now down here it says, basically summarize what the transaction manager is again with replacing point-to-point messaging with orchestrating end-to-end transactions and transaction copies like we were just discussing down here. And down here it says the technical deployment of the transaction manager took place in November 2022 with no payment traffic expected until May 2023. So like it said down here, it launched in 2022, but no payment traffic is set until May 2023. Moving along, it says transaction management platform mediates between institutions using different communication channels and formats, ensuring interoperability amongst members of the community. So the transaction manager is going to allow different systems and different communication channels to interoperate, along with ISO, of course, for cross-border payments. And these banks can adopt new services such as those provided through APIs at their own pace. So the APIs is a really big, important aspect of the transaction management platform. Appears as the new transaction management platform. The new transaction platform has a single message that all counterparties can access or interact over centrally. Leveraging current API technology with backwards compatibility, this central vision of the message can be accessed throughout the process, and data retrieved via different formats. So like we were saying down there, you can all the banks connected to the transaction management platform can access the golden copy and interact with it centrally. So it's a single source of data, just one place where all the messages are going to be accessed by all the participants in the Swift network. And down here it says visibility. The transaction platform allows for all counterparties to have a clean visibility at all points in the process. That's a really big improvement for how it used to be, where every bank in the chain had to be responsible of passing on the data themselves. Now down here is interesting. That says new services, transaction orchestration and tracking. And the movement from a linear process to a messaging platform is probably the most significant technological process improvement in the Swift network. So it's really important that they're doing this. So up here it says, this is a document from Citibank on the Swift transaction management platform. Now it says right here is that the transaction management platform is helping the Swift model move beyond store and messaging services with API connectivity with a new architecture. So this is a whole new system that they're adding here. More from Citibank on the transaction manager is that it's going to support new settlement methods. Now here's an image of what the transaction manager looks like. Now this is the Fin Plus messaging. This is just the messaging that's the with increased data thanks to ISO, the GPI tracker. That's what Swift has been using to track payments. And right above it is the API powered transaction manager, which is basically overlaying everything. So the APIs of the transaction manager will allow new supporting settlement methods when it's finally introduced with live transactions. And moving on, why is the transaction manager so significant? So right here we have from Strategic Treasurer, Treasury Update newsletter. The headline is Swift's new transaction platform. So clearly it's a worth an announcement about it. Down here it says Swift, already well known for the innovations it has made in the transaction messaging and already with high adoption levels, is not sitting on its laurels. In November of this year, the network will go live with a new transaction platform offering improved functionality. Far from simply an updated version of the current messaging system, the new platform represents a complete transformation in the method of payment messaging, switching from a linear process to platform-based. The change is set to have significant implications for Treasury and Finance, from increased visibility to sanction screenings, options, and improved exception management. A lot of improvements, as you can clearly see that they're discussing right here. Now, more additions to the transaction manager platform is that Swift will offer several channels to interact with the platform, including Fin messages, the traditional messages, Interact Fin Plus messages, which is like the increased data messages with MX messages, and APIs based on JSON ISO 22. So that's the third channel option to interact with the platform, which is APIs based on JSON and ISO. Now down here it says the transaction manager is introducing new possibilities and the enabler of the migration to ISO and a new API channels for international payment transactions. Now down here it says it's going to be orchestrating transaction processes and tracking transactions, supporting case management, facilitating services that assist customers initiating international payments. So it's introducing a whole bunch of new features. Now down here, these were reviews from banks on the new platform, which is discussing their enthusiasm about it. Right here it says Swift's new platform is the potential for integration with a variety of networks, rails, and third parties, leveraging the rich ISO format and the transaction orchestration within the new platform. So third parties, variety of networks and rails, that's new things that's going to be able to be added into Swift through the transaction management platform. And he also went on to say, I'm also pleased about the rules of engagement for these rails and networks via a single central framework that provides transparency to manage that end-to-end experience regardless of settlement rail. So end-to-end is account to account, bank to bank, customer to bank, directly to the account, and just skipping the whole correspondent banking process. Down here it says, not only because of the potential which it's going to bring us long term, but more importantly because we need this transaction manager. So the banks, from Deutsche Bank, people need this transaction manager. Important people like Swift, like Deutsche Bank, like all the important partners to Swift. They all need something like the transaction manager to fully enable their ISO capabilities. Right here it says the transaction manager will be vital to the wider industry for end-to-end transaction orchestration to ensure transparency and immutability of data. That means the data can't be tampered with the start of the migration of ISO. Continue down here, it says provide the opportunity to build new services for clients. Continuing to emphasize the need of the transaction manager for interoperability within the Swift community, different formats and channels. And down here it says it provides additional layers of validation that can be done along in-house bank checks and processes to ensure that we are providing payments into the Swift network that will be going to reach their destinations, will meet customer obligations, and will arrive absolutely on time and as fast as possible. So way major in improving from what it used to be. Continuing to why the transaction manager is important. Here's summaries about the transaction manager from Swift. This is a Swift document, by the way. And right here, really important. It says the platform will provide API-based services. Furthermore, for the first time like ever in Swift history, a fully capable API channel will be provided for cross-border payments and reporting, allowing the community to build on investments in open banking and other API initiatives. Open banking, if you don't know, that's basically banks open up their systems and services to third parties and fintechs to provide services within the bank to their customers. Now, this is a document from BNY Mellon on the Swift Transaction Manager where it says super blatantly that under API channel, the industry is moving from a purely messaging world to one where Swift is going to enable APIs to be used for payments processing. This is opt-in only, and there is no mandatory action for end users to take. So they're going to have the option for the first time to use APIs, which is a really easy technology to implement within your systems to move on from messaging, which is just sending notifications from bank to bank, to instead moving processing payments from one bank to another. Down here it says Swift creation of a global API-based transaction management platform. That's showing that the transaction manager is going to be based on APIs, which is completely different than what it used to be when it was just messages. So right here it says Swift moves away from the sequential messaging towards API-based platform with the immutable transactions that can be accessed by all parties involved in office true transparency. As we mentioned earlier, very transparent platform. Now, as we were discussing about APIs, if you don't know, we're going to have a little quick crash course in why APIs is important to this Swift transaction management platform. So, APIs are the key enabler of a digital economy. APIs are application programming interfaces that basically allows two different apps to communicate with each other with just simple implementations. Here it said they have technology drivers, which is the evolution and integration of APIs, which, like I was just saying, is really easy to integrate APIs into web architecture. So that's why APIs is the preferred tool for that. End-to-end transactions, value-added services on the technology driver side. Now on the business driver side, as far as banks and why they need it, they get the rich transaction data, they get the tracking, and the seamless and frictionless payments and interoperability along with ISO. So APIs bridge the business drivers along with the technology developments that's currently happening right now. Now here, the new transaction management platform, as it says right here, that Swift describes the new platform as frictionless with APIs able to fetch missing information in a matter of seconds. So that's basically saying what the capability of APIs is, and with APIs, Swift can move on from legacy messaging with really fragmented processes right here to one centralized platform where everyone can just access it easily. And as we mentioned earlier, industry moving on from messaging to APIs for payment processing. Now right here, it says making bank API connections is easy. Countless treasury and finance teams have understood the value of advancing to bank APIs, and some have made valiant effort to build connections themselves. A bank API aggregator is a technology provider that connects to multiple banks in one integration effort. So APIs with banks, really easy. This makes it easier for companies to connect to bank APIs and in turn access balance and transaction data to initiate payments all in real time, something that was not possible before without significant development effort and resource. This type of third-party technology allows companies to quickly advance their bank connectivity without building out an in-house infrastructure or needing to spend months trying to connect to each bank's API separately. So an API aggregator allows a bunch of APIs that provide different services and to initiate payments all at once instead of having multiple different APIs. Here it says bank APIs are faster and more secure than Swift. That's a big statement. Down here it says bank APIs provide a faster, more secure way to move data between corporations and their banks. For treasury practitioners and their partners in IT, APIs are nothing new. Most people already use API connections in their everyday life and their work life, whether it's the weather app that pipes the forecast into the smartphone or the API that connects the HR system to the payroll system. Most treasury teams are also familiar with real-time data, just not real-time bank data, because of the limitations of Swift and host-to-host bank connectivity. So here, they're saying a lot. They're saying that APIs have been around for a long time, just not around for banks and using it for real-time bank data. And that we all use APIs on a regular basis, whether that's Uber, Google, Netflix. We all have an experience with APIs that allows us to use our devices and applications seamlessly. So Swift is finally adopting APIs for their day-to-day processes. Right here was an article from Medium that says Swift leads the industry on open banking with a library of API standards. This is a big deal because Swift has basically since 2019 has been ahead with all the open banking standards as far as open banking APIs, as far as a library of third-party applications that can be used by banks. Swift is leading the open banking APIs extension standards, so they have the most in the world. Down here is from Swift themselves as well, where they was discussing DLT open APIs and ISO, where it says DLT and open APIs represent the technology for the future of financial services. right? And it says financial transactions, whether originating from open APIs or running through DLT systems, ideally need to have a common language to reduce risk and cost. Swift believes that ISO, with a few improvements to accommodate new technologies like DLT, can not only provide the basis for common standards going forward without distorting development processes or technology choices, but actually accelerate projects by providing ready-made industry-agreed definitions for core business concepts. By looking forward, industry can ultimately move forward much quickly on a more efficient basis. By using ISO and open APIs, they can accelerate their DLT systems adoption. Down here it says, in order to provide data interoperability, keyword, between different DLT solutions, Swift Standards is currently exploring the use of ISO business definitions for common instruments such as letter of credit or FX options. So with ISO and APIs, DLT is allowed to interoperate with common business standards. And going right down here, it says interface APIs and protocols, right? API interfaces and protocols allow interaction with the data and functions managed within an application. Users can request blockchain services over a network using APIs and protocols. So that's just a direct connection between APIs and blockchain technology right there. On one hand, the development of standard interfaces is fertile ground for standards. For outward-facing communications, there may be standards that are well suited, i.e., example, ISO can serve as a basis to blockchains. So ISO, as we know, is the global standard for payments, and it's clearly saying right here that by using ISO as the standard for blockchains, that is for APIs and protocols, that will be the best way to develop it by using ISO as the basis. And moving on. So transaction manager, third parties, and Swift. Let's see how that all comes together. So right here it discusses that there's different syntaxes and semantics that can be confusing for financial markets. Here it says the need is urgent for APIs. Happily, a data model capable of unifying data exchanges throughout the financial services industry exists. It's called ISO, and it was designed specifically to overcome the barriers created by different syntaxes and semantics. It provides a common language for machines and people to exchange data, which is recorded in a single but continuously expanded data repository. The working group believes the ISO's roles should be seen as a universal common language across channels such as Swift messages, APIs, DLTs, chatbots, etc. Now, this is from the ISSSA. They're the working group that basically does the research for DLT, for Swift, and ISO. So what they say is really important. They've done reports on DLT within ISO, digital currencies, assets, like they mentioned down here in 2019 and 2021. So they're really experienced with discussing crypto assets, bridges, integration with ISO and traditional systems. Moving on down here, it says standardized data also expedites the development of new products and services because it is easy to combine with data sets. The success of open banking, like we were just saying, banks opening up their processes to third-party services and open finance initiatives, which enable incumbent service providers and third-party developers to build new products and services, depend entirely on continuous and real-time access to consumer data held in different databases. Right here, it says, among the new services which customer data can facilitate our investment in cryptocurrency and security tokens. So open banking will allow customers to have access to new services like investment in cryptocurrency and security tokens, and the use of payment instruments such as stablecoins and CBDCs, all of which are potentially issued onto blockchain networks that inhibit the identification of counterparties. Accounts linked to digital identities derived from customer data are a solution. So right here is basically saying that through third parties, customers and banks will be able to facilitate investments in cryptocurrencies. My bad, that was a mistake. But down here it says this is a Swift partner. Bottom line, ISO 2002 enabler. With many ISO-driven initiatives being prioritized across the payment space, our comprehensive solution for ISO will help banks and financial institutions to adapt quickly to the new rails and to manage interoperability. ISO-driven initiatives. With API and modern API-driven initiatives in that space, i.e. the Swift Transaction Management Platform. So APIs, new rails, manage operability within the Swift Transaction Management Platform. Down here, it says there's overlay services that they can provide as well. In order to complement the core services above, our proposition includes additional digital overlay services, such as this is a third party from a Swift third party partner, right? So among their digital overlay services is data analytics, securities, and distributed ledger technology. Here it says we have proven DLT technology targeted at offering an alternative to Swift for business to business payments. We are already active in monitoring all DLT related payments and security initiative and incorporating them into any standard propositions requested by customers. So customers through Swift can request DLT related services from because of a company like Bottomline is in the picture within ISO. All the all the above capabilities are natively supporting ISO 20022, like I just said. So here, this is how payment service providers can integrate within Swift messaging. Payment service providers can integrate Swift messaging with their existing payment platforms and technologies in various ways. And here, discuss the various ways that they can integrate, and as well as the benefits. Here's a really important part right here. What payment service providers can do with Swift messaging. It says payment service providers are entities that can facilitate online transactions between merchants and customers. They offer various payment methods such as credit cards, e-wallets, bank transfers, and cryptocurrencies. PSPs also need to comply with different regulations and standards depending on the jurisdictions and markets they operate in. One of these standards is Swift messaging, which is a global network for secure and standardized communications between financial institutions. In this article, they discussed how PSPs can integrate with Swift messaging, and this is basically the how. So, this basically is a direct link on how cryptocurrencies can be involved within the Swift messaging network through payment service providers. Now down here it says the blockchain infrastructure layer for digital banks. Crypto APIs is the perfect solution for digital neobanks and fintech startups as a product suite. Allows institutions to retain full control, use of the highest level of security to protect funds and get access to blockchain infrastructure. So crypto APIs allow institutions to get access to blockchain infrastructures. Using a blockchain infrastructure provider like crypto APIs means digital banks can harness the advantages of the blockchain much faster. So APIs allow, like we just discussed earlier, APIs allow services to happen within seconds. And moving on. Now, the transaction manager's connection to DLT and Ripple. This is the really exciting part, right? Swift is expanding its capabilities beyond messaging to transaction management, as we clearly know, right? Cross-border payments. Swift is actively involved in a number of initiatives supporting interoperability, including market infrastructures, interlinking projects such as IXB with EBA Clearinghouse, EBA Clearing and the Clearinghouse, and the experiment to enable CBDCs and tokenized assets. So, tokenized assets, digital assets, interoperating with each other in existing asset types and systems. So all that interoperating with the transaction manager, tokenized digital assets, that means DLT blockchain. So down here, this is an article about the Swift CBDC experiment that recently concluded successfully. It says blockchain networks could be interlinked for cross-border payments through a single gateway. Swift transaction management capabilities, aka the Swift transaction management platform, could orchestrate all inter-network communication. That's saying a lot right there, that the Swift transaction management platform is able to handle blockchain networks through one single gateway. Pretty crazy stuff. Now down here, there's another article that said, with quotes from Swift, that said blockchain networks could be interlinked for cross-border payments through a single gateway, like the TMP said Swift. Swift's new transaction management capabilities could orchestrate all the inter-network communication. Swift said that it can serve as a single access point to different blockchains and that its infrastructure could be used to create and trade tokens across tokenization platforms. So clearly, transaction management platform, a lot of ties to blockchain and tokenization. Here it discusses what Swift's future role could be in the financial system, right? It says, in collaboration with the community, Swift intends to explore its role further, both as a carrier of authenticated information about CBDC transactions as it does today for fiat currencies, and as a carrier of actual CBDC value in whatever form it is issued. So the transaction manager is going to be able to carry value, right? Given Swift's current infrastructure, all above mentioned advantages can be realized as soon as possible. Because they have such a wide ranging network to so many banks and networks. Under here it says Swift new transaction management capabilities can handle all the inter-network communication from all of their members in their banks. At such a single point of contact, this would be more efficiently to facilitate global transactions. It says right here CBDCs and tokens will need to operate with the existing financial system infrastructure, which is why it's encouraging that Swift was able to show progress here within that CBDC experiment that we were just discussing. By solving interoperability challenges, the experiment may have paved the way for deploying CBDCs globally. So basically, the success of this transaction management platform within the CBDC experiment is basically confirming that CBDCs are ready and Swift is ready to deploy them. Now, under here is two interesting articles about Swift basically being able to acquire companies like Ripple to use their services. Over here it says, being aware of challenges posed by Ripple, Swift has started the Global Payments Initiative, aka GPI, to enhance the traditional Swift messaging. This is a set of new rules and service level agreements that the bank and institutions in Swift network must sign. It aims to deliver these features for customers to benefit from payments with the same day use of funds, predictable fee, and transparency of the process, end-to-end tracking of payments, and transfer of rich remittance payment information. Right here it says, Swift, being in the industry for so long, has a large network of members and strong cash flow. It is possible that Swift can acquire new tech startups like Ripple to improve its services. So that's basically saying that Ripple's just basically been in the game of acquiring companies instead of just building the services themselves that they have. Under here was a document from the Consumer Finance Government Organization, where this is a really important paragraph right here. It says the Bureau has continued to monitor the remittance transfer market since the publication of the assessment report and observes that most of the developments continue to progress. Examples include the continued growth and expanding functionality of Swift, GPI, which can increase the amount of upfront information available to sending institutions, and the expansion of major payment card network capacity to support cross-border payments. 2, the growth of fintech non-bank remittance transfer providers and their further expansion into partnerships and other relationships with banks and credit unions, which would allow such entities to tap into closed network payments that non-bank remittance transfer providers have deployed. And 3, the continued growth and expanding partnerships with virtual currency companies such as Ripple, which offer both a payments messaging platform to support cross-border payments, cross-border money transfer, as well as proprietary virtual currency, XRP, which can be used to effect settlement of those transfers. So this is basically saying that Swift GPI can acquire companies like Ripple to use currencies like XRP and to settle those transfers. Pretty dope stuff. Now down here, as we move on, we have a graph from Strategic Treasurer and Bottom Line. As we discussed earlier, the Strategic Treasurer had an article on the new Swift transaction management platform, and Bottom Line is a Swift partner. So right here was basically a corporate experiment where they asked them which new or emerging payment services are you using, and Ripple, blockchain services, was on the options that they could use. Down here it says it's also worth noting that more corporates are interested in using services like Ripple in Chain compared to Swift GPI. Small firms were 2 times more interested in Ripple or Chain than Swift GPI. So basically, if Swift GPI adopts Ripple, more corporates were more likely to use Ripple as opposed to Swift GPI services. Now down here, this is from Swift themselves on the Swift website, and this is cross-border payments reporting apps. These are the list of providers applications within ISO that are cross-border payments certified. So we got third parties like Finastra. If you know, Finastra is a Ripple partner, and we can go down here and see Finastra listed on the Ripple website as a partner and provider of a payment application. As you can see right here, they have an app with RippleNet called Fusion Total Messaging, which utilizes RippleNet Cloud. And right underneath here, it says Fusion Total Messaging, the same name as the app that utilizes Ripple, will be able to handle messages from the Swift Transaction Manager. So this is a direct connection from a Ripple-enabled app to the Swift Transaction Manager. Also, moving on, there's a company called Eastnets, who's also a payments app provider for Swift through ISO, and their application name is Payment Safe, right? And down here is a presentation from Eastnets on their payment app called Payment Safe, and right here you can see that Ripple is cited as a provider, as a DLT provider over Swift, over the RTGS systems connected directly into the network. So that's another connection from a Ripple enabled app all the way directly into the transaction manager. Moving on, we have Temenos Payments, right? That's a certified Swift partner. That's also a Ripple partner, and they have a Ripple enabled app that can be used within the transaction manager. Moving on, we have a company called the Task Group, and they have a payment application called the Network Gateway. Network Gateway, remember that from the Task Group. Under here has the Task Network Gateway. Here's the payment application that is certified within Swift for ISO and cross-border payments. Is they have a networks driver layer with a Ripple driver and a networks with Ripple in it as well. And this shows that the available networks are Ripple within the app that is certified within the Swift ISO payment applications. Moving on as well, we have Volante, who are submitting a payment application called VolPay for ISO. Down here, we have the VolPay Ripple processor module, which is a app from Volante that is powered by Ripple. Another Ripple enabled app that is certified by name within the Swift libraries of payment applications. Now down here we have just a small diagram of what the transaction manager looked like, just for visual purposes. As you can see, no longer messages, it's APIs and PAX 008 messages. And right here, as we remember from our last video, the way that RippleNet integrates with Swift through its ISO membership is through Swift messaging operability and third-party extensions, like it's discussed in this document right here. It says that Ripple, my bad, just misreading it. It says RippleNet is governed by payment objects, which is payment object send, which uses the ISO 2002 PAX 008 messages as a basis. PAX 008 messages, APIs, third-party extensions, RippleNet. That's basically the connection right there. And down here, these are just a few articles on how XRP can interact with CBDCs within Swift and the ISO standards. And I'll just read this right here real fast. It says, now Ripple's move into ISO is not just a sales pitch, it's a concerted effort to thrust their token XRP to the forefront of international finance through on-demand liquidity and instant settlements. So it says Ripple is one to watch how this new global system rolls out with the transaction manager and things like that. So just moving on to what we think what the transaction manager activation plan looks like. So we have right after 2023, we have the new transaction management platform beginning after the go live date of Target 2. And down here it says transaction manager. It has an incremental buildup of ISO payments from the end of looks like the end of 2022 to the end of quarter 1 2023, or end of quarter 2 2023. So that's an image right there. And down here it says it's a traffic buildup starting from end of 2023 to quarter 2 2023. And down here, these are just some potential numbers that we can see flowing through the transaction manager, because as we know, Target heavily relies on the Swift network. Target processed $484 trillion in 2021. That's a lot of money, right? $484 from Target, which relies heavily on Swift, and Swift itself does an average of $29 trillion in USD per day. So 484 trillion plus 29 trillion times 365, that's a lot of money, just those two systems together. And down here is a pretty interesting quote that says ISO has been talked about for years. Why is it taking off this time? It says it's different this time because the high value payments market infrastructure of all reserve currencies are in process of adopting ISO to support compliance and benefits from richness of the standard. There is clear imperative for financial institutions to financial institution payments to move to ISO. So it's taking off this time, just so you know. And down here was just basically an illustration on the Swift network, and just a quote from somebody who works at Swift, and the illustration made by Swift. It says, with the help of the Ripple blockchain, interbank payments can be made, but the exchange of personal data should be confidential as possible, and only Swift can make a good job out of it. So it's basically saying if Ripple and Swift teamed up, that would be their roles. So that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and hope it all makes sense. Thanks for your time.